Now, we've talked about the Royal Coachman on this channel before, how it evolved from the standard Coachman, which was a wet fly, and then got the red band becoming Royal, and then how Theodore Gordon turned it into a dry fly with upright duck slips for the wing. But not long after that, in the late 1920s, two gentlemen, independently but at the same time, made it a hair-wing dry fly. The two guys were QL Quackenbush, a Catskill area fly tyer, and Lee Wulff. And despite Quackenbush's version being tied and sold commercially by Rube Cross, another notable Catskill fly tyer, we pretty much know the fly today as the Royal Wulff. So why is it that that name stuck? I don't know, maybe it's because the Quack Coachman, which is what Cross called it, isn't really that cool of a name. Or maybe it's because Dan Bailey, who ran the famed fly shop in Livingston, Montana, collaborated with Lee Wulff and came up with a few other dry flies with this hair-wing style. There was the Gray Wulff, then the White Wulff, and this one, the Royal Wulff. So you can't help but feel a little bit sorry for Quackenbush, who may have gotten shortchanged in the annals of our history in the naming of this pattern. But at the end of the day, two great tyers came up with a great pattern that we still tie and fish today, and it still just catches a lot of fish. So there we go in the vise, a Royal Wulff. There is a lot going on in this pattern, but it's really not that hard of a tie. Now I'm tying this on a size 12. This is a 2 extra long barbless nymph or dry fly hook. So it's a light wire. I'm going to use black 52 denier thread. I'm going to catch it in up here somewhere in the first third. Now this might be the hardest part of the fly, is the wing of white calftail. It's not that easy to stack, but go ahead and try it if you can. One tip, open it up with the tips going forward. That way you can probably pull it out and minimize how many times you have to switch it in your hands. So that's stacked okay, not the best, but it'll work for us. And we'll want to kind of judge this, tie it in where you envision flipping it up, how high do you want it to be. Want it to be at least to the top of the hackle. And I'm heavily hackling this with some pretty long hackle. So 1.5 to 2 times the hook gap. So a couple wraps, you might need to twist it back toward your side. Now we can do some tighter wraps going back. Now after you've got 3 or 4 good tight wraps right there, what I like to do, lift this up at about a 30-degree angle, put my scissors in here parallel to the hook, and then just kind of snip it off like that. And if you pull that off, you'll get a little bit of a taper back here. We'll see if we did. So some loose kind of open wraps right here, just trying to taper that body back down. And I think we did okay right there. So there's no huge lumps. So with your thread back right behind that wing, we are going to prop this up. And if you notice, I left a good bit of bare hook in front of this wing because I'm heavily hackling these. I'm going to get at least 4 hackle wraps up there in front of that. So I think that's going to work. What you could do if you really wanted to, you could put a wrap just around this hackle, or not hackle, but that wing, and it would kind of bunch it together. I'm not going to do that. I don't mind if it spreads out a little bit. The fish will see it. But after you've done that, go ahead and take your thread to the back. And Jorgensen used brown bucktail for the tail. I rarely use bucktail. For these, I don't think it's stiff enough. So I'm going to go ahead and do moose hair. This is a brown natural moose hair, not moose mane. But go ahead and put it in your stacker if you want. I've got about, I don't know, 10 fibers or so here. You see that? That's stacked pretty well. I'm going to make it kind of long. So let's catch these in with a little pinch wrap right here. We'll take a couple of wraps and then take a look at it. Okay, that's going to work right there. So I'll go up forward with a couple of tighter wraps, and now we'll snip all these butt ends off right here. And now we're ready for our peacock herl. So I'm going to catch in 3 strands of herl right here. Now 3 might be overkill, 2 might be just fine, but I do want a little bit of a fat body here. And I do need to snip these. I might be able to just pluck them, but we'll snip them. Doesn't take too long. Alright, so where my thread is where I want the front of this butt section to be, but I'll go ahead and take 3 loose open wraps going forward. I'll back those off in a second. So let's wrap this butt section up. And our butt section is probably going to be a little bit wider than our front section of this herl. Okay, I think that's going to work right there. We'll back these 3 wraps off and then catch this peacock herl off right here. Kind of leave it on the top. We'll catch it off with 2 wraps. That way we can just kind of pull this forward. You could snip this and re-catch it in again in a second, or you could just do this little trick right there and we'll use that same herl for the front part of the body. So next up, just single strand red floss. Catch this in right here, loose wrap, and pull it back so I don't have to trim it. All right, that should work. All right, and leave your thread up here. Yeah, that's about where I'm gonna stop the front part of this red here. But go ahead and put several wraps and a couple of layers. So you get a couple of layers on top of each other so this red will really show, because it does darken up significantly when it gets wet. And if you're going through all the trouble to do a Royal Coachman or Wulff or anything like this, you really want this red to be prominent. It's a major part of the fly. So I think that is going to work right there. Let's catch this off. And now I'm going to get my thread up here in front of this herl, and I'll do 2 or 3 wraps right here. Don't necessarily want to get it right up behind that wing. I am kind of, but we're going to be fine, because the hackle, the brown hackle I'm about to wrap up, I want a couple wraps behind the wing, but several wraps in front of the wing. And I think we're going to be able to get that. So for my hackle, brown dry fly hackle, again, pretty long. That's probably 1.5 to 2 times the hook gap right there, and that's about what I want. So that's where I'm going to catch this in. So let's catch it in right behind this wing. Concave side toward the hook if you can. If not, probably not a big deal. So let's several wraps up here to really lock this stem in. Now we do have a little bit of excess to snip off right here. Now let's wrap this hackle. We'll see if we can get 2 full wraps behind it, and then however many we can get up in front of it. And we can use this hackle to kind of position this wing. If you're laying it down like I am a little bit right there, we could put this first couple of wraps right up under it and try and prop it back up. And now I've got room for at least 4 or 5 wraps up here. Okay, that's fairly bushy. I might even go 1 more. All right, let's catch this off. All right, that's a bushy hackle, and that's exactly what I want. I'm going to snip this stem. Try not to snip any extra of these barbs here, because now I'm going to lick my fingers, pull everything back, and try to create a little flat area for my whip finish here. Make sure I'm not crowding the eye, and I'm fine. So that's big enough of a head. As soon as I let go of this with my material hand, they're going to spring forward. So you'll want to do a whip finish pretty quick before they all spring too far forward. Maybe do a little zigzag whip finish here. And there we go. Take a look, see if you got any cleanup. Yeah, I'm not cleaning this thing up. I'm fishing it just like this. I'm going to put a little drop of UV resin up there on that head. But we got a fishable fly, and any of these patterns in the Royal Coachman family have been just killing it for me lately. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.